Intitulé Des paysages protégés, avec les précautions méthodologiques sur lesquelles a insisté Maguelone de Jean-Ponce ce matin, s'agissant du caractère forcément un peu artificiel du découpage entre protection, gestion, aménagement, j'y reviendrai. Avant d'entrer dans le contenu concret de cet atelier, je voudrais commencer par vous dire tout le grand plaisir qui est le mien de retrouver cette belle communauté de travail qui est celle de la Convention européenne du paysage. Communauté de travail à laquelle j'ai eu la chance d'appartenir pendant quelques années, jusqu'au début 2020, en tant que représentant national pour la mise en œuvre de la Convention en France. Et c'est donc à ce titre-là, et en tant que membre du comité directeur de la culture, du patrimoine et du paysage, que j'ai eu l'honneur également d'être désigné pour représenter le CDCPP aux travaux du jury de la 6e session du prix européen du paysage. Et c'est donc voilà ce qui motive en premier lieu ma présence parmi vous aujourd'hui. Et encore une fois, j'en suis véritablement très heureux, puisque, pour reprendre aussi certains des propos qui ont été énoncés ce matin, je crois qu'il n'existe à mon sens pas d'autres conventions internationales qui combine avec autant de force le rationnel et l'émotionnel. Je crois que c'est les mots d'Anestis de ce matin, et je trouve que c'est très juste et c'est important. Vous en êtes tous ici convaincus, mais c'est important qu'on continue de porter ce message qui est celui du Conseil de l'Europe et de la Convention européenne du paysage. Alors, en quittant en 2020 mes fonctions de représentant national pour la mise en œuvre de la Convention, je n'ai pas quitté pour autant le domaine du paysage. Je continue de m'investir dans ces politiques publiques, toujours en tant qu'agent du ministère français chargé de l'environnement, donc tout comme mes collègues que vous avez entendus ce matin, Guillaume et Émilie, mais au niveau local. Au sein du département de la Charente-Maritime, donc qui est situé sur la façade littorale atlantique, au niveau local, et donc en tant qu'inspecteur des sites, les sites classés étant en France des espaces qui font l'objet d'une protection forte au titre de la qualité de leur paysage. Voilà, dont le caractère exceptionnel fait l'objet d'une reconnaissance au niveau national. Pour autant, Maguelone l'a dit ce matin, et je pense que c'est important de le répéter à nouveau, une des grandes forces, me semble-t-il, de la Convention européenne du paysage, c'est de ne pas opérer de hiérarchie entre les paysages et de hiérarchie entre ces piliers fondamentaux que sont la protection d'une part, la gestion et l'aménagement d'autre part, qui peuvent tout à fait se nourrir l'un et l'autre. Et du coup, j'ai envie de dire que finalement, toutes les expériences de paysage qui vont vous être présentées cet après-midi, peu importe au fond qu'elles mettent plus ou moins l'accent sur la protection ou sur une autre dimension, l'essentiel, me semble-t-il, est de retenir qu'elles sont toutes, d'une certaine manière, porteuses de sens. Et là aussi, à nouveau, je reprends des expressions qui ont été mises en avant au cours du Symposium national d'hier par nos collègues grecs, et encore à nouveau ce matin, des expériences de paysages porteuses de sens, d'abord pour les territoires qui les ont vus naître, ensuite pour le pays qui les ont désignés comme étant leur lauréat pour concourir à ce prix européen du paysage, et puis on l'espère, porteuses de sens à une échelle encore plus large, pour tous les pays signataires et tous les acteurs qui partagent les valeurs de cette Convention européenne. Alors, je vais laisser la parole maintenant aux différents représentants de toutes ces expériences et projets de paysage, en commençant par Monsieur Emmanuel Barcelos, haut fonctionnaire de la Direction régionale de l'aménagement du territoire et des ressources en eau, du gouvernement régional des Azores, au Portugal, qui va nous relater l'expérience intitulée « Paysage de la culture du vignoble de l'île de Pico ».
Hello. First of all, I would like to thank you this opportunity to share this prize that Portugal won in 2018. First of all, to thank the invitation that was done to the Azores government to share this project. It's the landscape of Pico Island vineyard culture, and I would like to. Okay, that's available. I had a different presentation to do with much more texts and much more information and much more facts. But at some point I saw that in the schedule I was presenting after the lunch, and I said, okay, people will sleep for sure. So I'm going to change my presentation. So I made a few changes on the presentation so it can be lighter. And I would like to present this prize as a story of some population from an isolated island that through time shaped its landscape and ended up being shaped by the landscape itself. So the Azores are a small group of islands, a small archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that belong to Portugal mainland. And we have about 2.3 thousand kilometers of area, about 2.5% of the Portuguese area. And we are an autonomous region with 19 municipalities and about 155 civil parishes. We are a volcanic archipelago, so we are situated between the American plate, tectonic plate, the Euro-Asian plate, and also the African. We join them together in the Azores. So the volcanic activity in the Azores is very, very high. Actually, at this moment, there's an island with a normal seismic activity with about 1.5 thousand earthquakes per day. So it's very shaky. But I'm going to talk about Pico. Pico is one of the islands that belongs to the central group of islands in the Azores. It has about 444 square kilometers, and it's the highest place in the Azores. So it has 2,351 meters tall. It's actually the highest place in all Portugal territory. The volcanism in the Azores started about 36 million years ago, and so the islands were shaped along the time, and the most oldest island is Santa Maria with about 6 million years old, and the most youngest is Pico with about 300,000 years. 300,000 years. It's a very special place to live, and this is an image of Pico seen from the sea, and all the Azores are a very a place with lots of geodiversity and also biodiversity. The colonization of the island started after its discovery in 1427, and it happened because the Portuguese crown was trying to find more places to cultivate cereals due to its market change and the demands, and so they found the Azores at some time, and they didn't find all the islands at once. There are islands that were discovered 25 years after the first settlement in the Azores. And so the first cultures that were applied in the Azores were essentially cereals. But Pico had a problem. Being the youngest island in the archipelago, its soil it wasn't that developed as the other islands. In fact, Pico had several different lava episodes, and at some point, most of the island was covered with a thin layer of lava, with rock. And this is one of those places. It's like a lava slab that covers almost all the island. And at some point, people on Pico started to think what they should do to live. And they found out that between the cracks, the fractures of those lava slabs, they found the fertile soil beneath. And at some point, they started to culture the vine. The vine actually came out as being the best culture for the place, because with this kind of landscape, you can see that probably the place is hot because of the color of the rock. And so the vines also need that kind of heat. And so they started cultivating vines there. But the abundant rocks on the place also made them some special shelters. Fayal. And from Fayal, the wines from Pico went all over the world, to the United States, to the United Kingdom, to Brazil, and even to Russia. In 1849, the population of the island was about 31,000 people. It's a massive increase of population. And in the first half of the 19th century, they were producing about 12,000 to 15,000 casks per year. So that's a lot of wine that we're producing. The wines from Pico were drinking even at the Czar's tables at Russia. This is one of the structures that they carved on the rock to get nearby the sea to load the boats. But then, at some point, at the second half of the 19th century came the diseases, the plagues. And one of the plagues that hit Pico was the powder mildew. And that declined a lot, the wine production. It came in 1852, and in 1866, the amount of casks that they produced was about 100 casks. That's a big drop in production. So at that time, they tried to use other kinds of vines that were resistant to the mildew. And they started to cultivate a different, because before they used the white variety called Verdelho, and at some point they started to use a red variety called Isabella, or as we locally know it, as an aromatic wine because of its smell and its flavor, very, very fruity. And then they started to cultivate that kind of vine. But at some point came another disease, phylloxera, in 1873. And so those two crises led to a big immigration movement from the island. At some point, by the beginning of the 19th century, they had about 24,000 people, so they decreased a lot. On this place that previously was a big wine production area, they also built some manor houses, some wineries, some distilleries, some warehouses. Some churches even. And with those diseases, at some time, the production went really, really down. And at the point that the owners from the land that were from another island, from Fayal, where the rich people were, at some point started to sell the land. And the people that bought the lands were people from the Pico Island, so they were poor. So they didn't have the chance to buy all the land, so they bought some pieces of the land. So that led to a fragmentation of the properties. And at some point in the 20th century, the National Wine Board decided to build a winery there to incentivize the wine production in Pico. And since there, with the local cooperative that was founded on 1961, they started to regain attention about the wine. And at some point, in 1994, the Pico wine was considered a wine coming from the market region. Later, in 1996, the Pico landscape, vineyard landscape, was considered a protected landscape by the local government. So, and then by 2004, some measures were applied from the local government, supporting the reconstruction of main buildings, and also recovering the vineyards also, as well as maintaining them, as well as another program to correct architectural dissonances that meanwhile were done. And that started the reverse of the process in the wines of Pico. At 2004, the Pico landscape was considered a World Heritage Site by UNESCO also. So it was the start of the recovery of the wines from Pico. Nowadays, have a lot of investments there, a lot of wine companies that made their investments there with enoturism, also wine tourism. So Pico is in good shape now, and the government authorities also claimed the attention of the Pico vineyard culture, with the inclusion of the schools in teaching this culture, and creating walking trails, for instance, and involving the population on the regulamentary actions that were being done and the plans that were being done, and also museums raise awareness about Pico wine. So the Pico landscapes, it's about diversity of some constructions. It expresses the volcanic value of an island that was shaped by 5 centuries of human history. So that's something that for us Azorians, because I'm an Azorian, it's something that we preserve a lot, and we valued a lot. Some of the actions took to preserve the wine and to recover it involved giving some support to locals and to local companies that wanted to recover the vineyard culture. And that's a chart of the amounts that have been paid since 2004 to today. Today, Pico Vineyard's landscape occupies about 3,291 hectares of land in Pico. That's a lot for an island, actually. Pico, they also they recovered many devoluted buildings with a common architectural language. So the place has its own identity. Okay. This is an image of. I don't know if you can see it right, but in brown you have the places when the vineyard was cultivated before 2004. And in green you have the places, the darkest green is the places that were recovered since then, and the light green is the places that were on recovering process. So it's a big comeback in the island culture. And I would like to finish with this video from the European, from the National Landscape Awards from 2018, where this landscape won the first prize. Okay. Can put sound, please.
É o Pico. No início apenas pedra árida, pedra sem água. Depois o povoamento que lhe trouxe a vida e o homem que teimou da pedra fazer vinho e tanto mais. Nunca o homem moldou este pico, moldou-se a ele. E se era pedra no passado, assim continua, natural como a natureza o desejou. Hoje é património da humanidade. A lava deixou os caminhos que podiam desbravar-se para o futuro. E há vida, tanta vida nesta ilha feita de um alegre povo, alegria que lhe chega da resistência e força que sempre precisou mais que outros para da pedra fazer vida. E de erupções que se tornaram mistérios, nasceu a paisagem que se oferece agora, como uma palete de verdes e negros que mergulham no mar ou parecem voar contra o azul do céu. Ficou a fauna e a flora, a riqueza da biodiversidade. Os matos costeiros de urze e cedro, a azorina e o bracel. Resistem aos ventos, ao sal e aos séculos. Misturam-se com os corrais feitos à mão, pedra a pedra. Pedras embaladas pelos cânticos dos cagarros e pelo voo misterioso dos morcegos. Hoje é paisagem da cultura da vinha da Ilha do Pico. Lá estão os lajidos, como searas de lava, com tanta beleza. São espantosos os longos muros de pedra, entrelaçados. Viajam imóveis junto à costa, como que a querer mergulhar no interior da ilha. Aqui estão há séculos, resguardam do vento e do rocio do mar as videiras plantadas nestes pequenos retângulos, os corrais, um corral após o outro. É assim desde o século XV. Molda-se a paisagem como uma manta de retalhos. São as adegas, os lagares, as casas e os solares, e a grandeza das pequenas ermidas, símbolos da religiosidade de um povo que se entregava tanto aos desígnios divinos como ao duro trabalho de sol a sol. São portinhos e poços de maré e os caminhos por onde as barricas seguiam para bordo dos navios com a ajuda dos carros de bois. Rola pipas. E lá dentro rolava o néctar dos deuses para as mesas do mundo, até à mesa dos czares da Rússia. Vinhas trabalhadas ao som das chamarritas, balhadas e cantadas tantas vezes para enganar o cansaço de um povo que nunca se rendeu. Mesmo quando, pelas doenças da vinha, chegou o declínio e quase o abandono. Programas de apoio e incentivo trazem outra vez vida nova e nova dinâmica. Renasce o entusiasmo pela vinha, pela paisagem, pela chamarrita. Reerguem-se ruínas, recuperam-se as vinhas. A paisagem renasce como e onde sempre esteve, cuidada e bela. E é ver o Pico e a sua gente em tempo de vindimas e como do trabalho se faz festa. Das uvas que chegam à adega, as pipas voltam a encher-se e as garrafas hão de levar a mais mesas o prazer único de provar o vinho que sai desta paisagem, que sai da pedra. O vinho do Pico não é apenas vinho. Nesta paisagem engarrafam-se tantas experiências. Há lugares onde repousa a memória deste pico, à espera de ser saboreado e redescoberto a cada visita, a cada trilho pelas vinhas, a cada passo por entre os corrais que carregam milhares de histórias por contar. Uma paisagem que é feita de gente que sabe receber bem. Quem vem nunca mais esquece. Uma história que não consta dos manuais, mas que é cultivada na escola. Provar que da pedra se faz vinho. É assim há séculos, séculos de uma paisagem de cortar a respiração. Talvez por isso, esta paisagem da vinha do Pico não possa apenas ver-se. Tem de se sentir, tem de se viver, cheirar, provar, bailar. Tudo isto é Pico. Paisagem única dos Açores, como a natureza e os picarotos quiseram que fosse.
I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you soon in the Azores.
Très belle présentation qui me fait penser aux propos d'œuvrer Donc, nous allons maintenant accueillir Madame Biljana Filipović-Đuzić, conseillère principale pour la coopération internationale multilatérale, du ministère de la Protection de l'Environnement de Serbie, et M. Vladimir Piler, architecte, planificateur urbain et spatial principal de l'Institut de planification urbaine et spatiale de Vojvodine, de Serbie, qui vont nous présenter le plan d'aménagement du territoire à vocation spécifique à propos du paysage culturel de Sremski Karlovci, en espérant que je ne n'écorche pas trop. You have the floor.
Hello, my name is Vladimir Pichler. I'm coming from Serbia. I'm representing Republic of Serbia in this event together with Ms. Biljana Filipovic from the Ministry of Environment and Protection, and my colleague Dragana Dunčić from Urban and Spatial Planning Institute of Vojvodina. I'm also coming, I'm an urban planner and architect from Urban and Spatial Planning Institute of Vojvodina. It's a regional planning institute which is developing urban and spatial planning documents on different scale levels in the autonomous province of Vojvodina. It's the northern part of Serbia. In 2018-19, we submitted one project that we did together with the Ministry of Environment and Protection for the prize for the competition, right? For the, as it was national selection for the Landscape Award of the Council of Europe. And today, I see why we didn't get first prize, because projects were really good. So congratulations, like the projects were really nice. But anyway, we are confident that our project was also good and it's still ongoing. So the cultural landscape of Sremski Karlovci, it's well, what I will present and what we did is actually a spatial planning document, which is called, it's a particular type of spatial planning document which we have in Serbia. It's called Spatial Plan for Special Purpose Area, and we call it the cultural landscape of Sremski Karlovci. These are what you can see on the slide. These are just basic facts. So it's the project is situated in the municipality of Sremski Karlovci in autonomous province of Vojvodina in the Republic of Serbia. The project development started in September 2015, and the key parties of the project were Urban and Spatial Planning Institute of Vojvodina, where I work, then Provincial Secretary for Urban Planning and Environmental Protection, Municipality of Sremski Karlovci, then some NGOs, like it was Vojvodina Environmental Movement, and the Secretary for Heritage Promotion and Development of Sremski Karlovci. Actually, it was a society. And the whole project was financed by the government of autonomous province. So, as a background story, Sremski Karlovci is an important historical town situated on the right bank of the Danube River, between the two biggest cities of Serbia, between Novi Sad and Belgrade. And the town developed into an important cultural and economic hub after 1699 and the signing of a relatively famous peace treaty, and the peace treaty happened here, like between Turkish side and on one side, and then on the other side, Austro-Hungarians, Polish, and Venetians. And then for 2 centuries, it was the main engine of Serbian cultural and political, as well as religious life. But then the town was, as it was developed between the Danube River and the slopes of the Fruška Gora mountain, which is today the national park, it was constantly balancing between several natural restrictions, as very frequent floodings and very severe landslides. Besides these multi-layered cultural and natural values, the importance of the area rests also on the unique insight into the historical processes of migration and settling within the Habsburg Empire, and the aspirations of predominantly like Serbian people towards political and religious autonomy within the Austrian Empire of that time. In the previous century, geopolitical changes led the town to a serious decay, causing imbalances in the landscape quality and the overall quality of life. The lack of adequate development strategies and gaps in the national and local legislation further enhance this deterioration, and demographic change and the formation of urban sprawl of the nearby city of Novi Sad throughout last decades triggered transformations of landscape character of the town and its agricultural hinterland. Although the town and its community showed significant resilience, sustaining itself through local initiatives, the fear of accelerated deterioration has been tackled by the regional government, and most recently the town was strategically designated as part of the area that represents European Capital of Culture in 2021. So together with the city of Novi Sad and 2 more municipalities. Acknowledging inherited values and seeking the way to mitigate negative development trends, the decision has been made to create a spatial development strategy that would enhance the image of the wider area, prioritizing both city-scale concerns and values of its natural surroundings. Local government, in collaboration with the regional planning authorities, proposed to designate the area as a cultural landscape, which borders would be defined through the process of development of appropriate spatial planning document. And that's when the decision was made to create a spatial plan for special purpose area. The purpose for its preparation was to provide directives and measures which would enable clear interpretation of the territory as a cultural landscape. The objectives defined by the local and regional authorities proposed implementation of the principles established by the European Landscape Convention. The main objective was to identify, valorize, and institutionalize the cultural landscape of the town of Sremski Karlovci through the active communication between experts, civic organizations, and local people. In accordance with the definition of landscape quality objective, the document is intended to provide planning statements and directives for the affirmation of the territory as a unique entity and a recognizable, with a recognizable landscape character. So on the map you can see actually the position of the area of the town. The considered area of the plan covered the almost 65 square kilometers, containing the diverse landscapes of forested slopes of the mountain and alluvial plains of the middle Danube. And that between these two very contrasting landscape characters, like between the mountainous area and the inundation zone of the Danube River, was formed a specific town, actually landscape, which was characterized by the compact morphology of the historic settlement of Sremski Karlovci and the particularities of their agriculture surrounding and the wine production. So the area is also famous, as the previous one is, for wine production from the old times. So this is how it looks. The project activities were aiming to realize the full potential of landscape characterization and to identify the landscape quality objectives with the purpose of creating new spatial development strategy. The project defined the landscape quality objectives both for the whole area of defined cultural landscape and each of the landscape units within the area of the planning document. General quality objectives that stand out for the whole area emphasize the historical importance of the area, heterogeneity of the landscape types, and the potential of the area to become well-established cultural and ecotourism destination. It's important to mention that the project represents the first spatial planning document in Serbia that provides conceptual framework for spatial planning based on the landscape conceptualization, and the first planning document that performs as an application model of the European Landscape Convention directly. So this is on the map you can see the region of autonomous province of Vojvodina, and this is the map that shows like different, let's say, the regional landscapes and characterization, and the position of Sremski Karlovci and the cultural landscape of Sremski Karlovci is actually part of a wider area of the National Park of Fruška Gora and the Danube River, which is like the backbone of the whole region and characterize the whole area. So the analysis was done obviously on the different scale levels, and we try to really position and to try to find definition of landscape, of cultural landscape of Sremski Karlovci, considering all these different landscape levels, starting from the regional level and from the more local level, from the level of the national park. So Sremski Karlovci are actually here on this, and this is the city of Novi Sad. And this is, the green one is the national park, and whole this area here on the other side of the Danube River is the flooded zone, basically where very often, like let's say yearly, every year the Danube is like flooding whole that zone. So in between these two very contrasting landscape realities, it's situated this historic town. So we also, for the landscape character assessment, we used, they were very useful, these old maps, these Austro-Hungarian military maps. We have three these military surveys, like first, second, and third one, from 18 until the end of 19th century. And these maps showed us really the dynamic of change within these 2 centuries. And we could really trace from those maps how actually the Danube flow changed, how the settlements developed in different ways, what were the connection roads between other settlements and the town of Sremski Karlovci, and it gave us a lot of information to actually to actually see what is important, what are the landscape elements within the area that are important for giving special status or protecting on a certain way, or like have like special approach in development. So this is a second military survey, just for the, it's already very different. Like, we also use the different generation of cadastral maps, because also through the time, especially in 20th century, the cadastral reality, actually, the formation of parcels during the socialism and after socialism and before the socialism, it was very different reality. And the rationality behind these parcellations and the space was very different in that time, especially in this agricultural production, which also gave us like very important information. And of course, we used like a lot of other data, including like digital elevation models and so on. What we were like actually aiming to do, the central task of the project activities was to develop the spatial plan by emphasizing historical importance of the area, its potential to become well established, like not just cultural landscape, but really to find like new rationality for that, and to be established as an ecotourism destination. And that was really important for us to give new rationality for the whole landscape. With the innovative conceptualization framework, that methodological approach based on the landscape characterization, it was intended to formulate shared landscape quality objectives through comprehensive communication and create strategic spatial development framework for the establishment of proper landscape management plan. And the central aims were related to two main sections of the project. First one was the Communicative Activity Aim, which was actually that aim, the idea behind that aim was to raising the landscape awareness, both within the community and activities related to spatial and urban planning, then to promote promotion of the importance of landscape characterization as an essential part of guiding development, and to establish establishment of the multi-direction transfer of knowledge between professionals and local people and government bodies as well, so like from three sides. Promote landscape planning as the activity of primary public interest, and the landscape character as a major part of cultural identity of the community. And the last one was formulation of the shared vision for protection and improvement of the landscape character of the town. Second aim was related to the framework of strategic planning development, and that was identification, valorization, and instrumentalization of the cultural landscape of Sremski Karlovci, and then identification of certain characteristics of the landscape as strategically important for protection, conservation, and improvement. So basically what we try to do is to, considering the whole area, we try to kind of find what are the elements of the landscape, what are the particular landscape types which will be represented, which we have to do something with them, like to protect them or to kind of give the certain guidelines for the development, and they will be representatives for the wider area. So we very carefully try to kind of extract from the landscape, from the previous analysis, landscape character assessment, all the kind of elements of the landscape, and to say, okay, these spatial kind of fragments of the space, they're going to be representatives from which the wider area, the whole area can be read. And that's how we came to, out of 3 basic landscape types. Like the first one is this part of the Danube with the Indonesian area. Second one is the forested slopes of the mountain, of Fruška Gora mountain and the national park. So, so this is the Danube, like the let's say waterscape. This is the forest, and then in between is the third one. And then within that spaces we've extracted 9 landscape units, which were actually the basis for us to work with, like for the development. And we said, like, okay, from these 9 landscape units, we are going to present the whole area. So basically we have these kind of acupunctural interventions in the wider area in order to really, so minimum interventions in the space with maximum effect, let's say. These images are actually showing each of these 3 landscape types, among which one we have 9 landscape units, as we call them. So the outcome of the project is a comprehensive planning document, which is working on different levels. First of all, we created a land use plan, so we are giving directions for the land use, like the building it's a basic for the building permits and for the development of infrastructure. So how the built area is going to be developed further, how the agricultural area is going to be used, how the forest is going to be protected. So it's very exact and it's very comprehensive in one way. Outcome of the project, apart from the planning document, and what planning document has to have is also so it's basically local landscape policy. From the plan we are generating local landscape policy, which is directing the way the landscape is further developed. Then we believe that we reached certain level of understanding the landscape characterization, and landscape character is seen as part of a public domain, that not just what is officially protected by the domain of culture, heritage, and nature protection, but that the landscape character is also something that people have a right on, and the quality of landscape character is also very important, and it's part of public domain. Then we developed landscape quality objectives through the communication process, which extended beyond just this compulsory communication process, which is related just for the development of the planning document, but we made it wider, and we involved far more key stakeholders in the whole process. And also the outcome is the database, GIS database for the area, which is very useful for further development of the projects on the of the smaller scale level, but also for the monitoring of the impact of the change of the landscape and the impact of the projects that we are doing. So I will go over it. It's very important that to mention that Sremski Karlovci, the town, is part of the European Capital of Culture project, 2021, which was shifted to 2022, so it's this year. And also, because we did this project, it was part actually of, it was decided by the government to put it as part of the wider area of the city of Novi Sad, which is the capital of culture this year, culture of Europe. I think that it's also very important to stress that that within the planning document, we also developed the strategy for development of the tourism. Tourism was like really important part of the strategy and of the land use plan. And it's really saying like the plan is like really envisioning how the different tourist amenities within the area should be developed, and also who is going to develop that, who is responsible for developing that. And it's part of the creating sustainable development and new rationality of using the space. Let's say the methodological approach that we first time made, like to actually use the spatial planning document on the regional, starting from the regional scale, is replicable in a way that we, for the first time in Serbian system of planning, we used actually landscape characterization as a basis for spatial planning. And after this plan, we also did another plan for another part of the for another town also in the autonomous province of Vojvodina, using very similar methodological approach. Participation, as I mentioned, was also a very important outcome. So we also used alternative participation procedures, and awareness raising is certainly something that we believe that we reach with this, within the development of this project, in the process of the development of this spatial plan. With this slide, I would like to thank you and to say that I'm really happy that I'm part of these sessions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci à vous pour cette présentation qui nous fournit une belle illustration de la manière dont l'approche par le paysage peut aider à passer d'une logique d'abord défensive pour atténuer certaines tendances négatives comme l'étalement urbain, passer d'une logique défensive à une logique positive basée sur la définition d'objectifs de qualité paysagère dans les documents de planification. Et on est très heureux d'entendre que the process is still going on. Merci beaucoup et bravo. Et je laisse le soin à Maguelone de Jean Ponce à nouveau de vous remettre ce diplôme.
The diploma to you and your colleagues.
Alors, j'appelle maintenant Madame Dace Granta, expert principal au sein de la division des politiques de l'aménagement du territoire, département de l'aménagement du territoire, du ministère de la protection de l'environnement et du développement régional de Lettonie, et la représentante du projet qui va vous être présentée, Madame Evia Nagel, directrice exécutive adjointe de la municipalité de Valmiera, chef du département du développement de la municipalité de Valmiera en Lettonie. Et donc le projet qui va vous être présenté concerne l'origine des traditions culturelles lettonnes, Dikli, le lieu de naissance du festival de la chanson lettonne.
Greetings from Latvia, greetings from Riga. The Latvian delegation is very happy to be here because there is still snow in Latvia. But not this spring feeling or spring flowers make us so happy. Thanks the Council of Europe and Hospitality of Greece, this is a beautiful event and opportunity to share experience, to take care of our common goods, European heritage, or landscape in each country, in each place. But we work together. Landscape management, planning, and development issues are being increasingly emphasized in Latvia since the European Landscape Convention came into force in the year 2007. Many municipalities recognize the value of landscape and pay particular attention to their integration into public space. Therefore, the European Landscape Award is a significant initiative to motivate local governments and NGOs to demonstrate the best outdoor development projects and experiences. Latvia is a relatively small and sparsely populated country with approximately 2 million inhabitants, and a special national landscape award has not been established. But every 2 years, a selection of applicants for the European Landscape Award is organized on a national level by the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development. To evaluate applications, a special commission by our ministry is approved for each national session. This commission includes representatives from 5 planning regions, the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature Protection Agency, National Heritage Board, and NGOs, Latvian Association of Local and Regional Governments, Latvian Association of Landscape Architects, and Latvian Architects Association as well. All applications are evaluated based on rules and recommendations of the Landscape Award of the Council of Europe, but Latvia has one additional criterion. It is a criterion related to planning for landscape. And this assessment of application has 2 steps. On the first step, each criterion is evaluated from 1 to 3 points by the relevant planning regions. And in the next step, the member of the commission, except planning regions, can give an extra point for the particular importance of the project. Latvia has organized 6 national selections, and the projects were very different. The first winner, Jūrmala town, developed a project in a forest park for various outdoor activities. But the second winner, the town Kuldīga, developed a project to integrate the natural value of the longest waterfall of Europe with the medieval historical center of this town. But of course, we are especially proud of the next winner. It is a project regeneration of Daugavpils fortress, which was recognized by the international jury as the best in Europe in the year 2018 and was granted the Landscape Award of the Council of Europe. It was a really significant contribution to public engagement because the gala event was organized in cooperation with the Council of Europe in the town of Daugavpils. But coming back to awareness raising and involvement of the general public, it is important to mention that the year 2018 was very significant for Latvia because the 100th anniversary of Latvia's independency was then celebrated with a wide range of activities, including the national selection of the European Landscape Award. The highest number of points during this selection was collected by the project by Kocēni municipality. And why this project has won will be explained by the deputy chairman of the Kocēni municipality, Evija Nagle.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a large honor to be here, and I'm very happy. Thank you for invitation and for opportunity. And I am my presentation about small village in Latvia, where is 1,400 inhabitants. But this village Dikli is very known is in Latvian cultural history. In 1818, the first Latvian theater traditions began there. In 1864, the Juris Neikens, clergyman and writer and teacher, organized the very first ever joint singing or song festival in Latvia, which came laying the foundation for the beautiful Latvian traditions, which is included in the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. And nowadays, there come together 50,000 singers and dancers for these events. And now Valmieras municipality is nominated as one of the 3 candidate towns from Latvia to European Cultural City 2027 nomination together with Daugavpils. I understand that most of you know where is Daugavpils and have been there. So Dikli is Dikli is a place where nature and cultural heritage meet each other. Dikli is one of the few places in Latvia where all the above historical recordings on both the most important cultural events and historical facts of Latvia are preserved, and which are still being restored, maintained, improved even today. And all together joint tourism offer what cares for landscape values with the value of historical and archaeological monuments of national importance. It tells story of previous generation and passes them to the next generation. Therefore, now we are liable for the way cultural and historical environment and landscape are today, and how they will be in the future. Joint tourism offer has been set up, renewed nature concert hall, singing festival promenade, the Vix or popular writer fairy tale park, Dikli church, where the Juris Neikens served this church as priest, Dikli Palace complex, which is manor was built in 1896 and has been selected as an architecture landmark of national significance. Referring to options of cultural experts in the broadcast of the Latvian national television's addresses, interaction between architecture and nature in Dikli is really magic. And I invite you to have a look on new built open-air concert hall through video together with the most soulful and symbolic songwriter and singer of Latvian awakening area, Ieva Akurātere. And the video is an independent TV broadcast and has not been ordered.
3 lielākās Latvijas brīvdabas estrādes ir Meža parks, Ogre un Dikļi. Manam šodienas ceļabiedram ar lielām un mazām estrādēm ir ļoti liela pieredze, taču Dikļos viņa būs pirmoreiz.
Mežparka neseno vēsturi, es domāju, ka ļoti daudzi atcerās no tavas slavenās manai tautai 88. gadā. Tautas fronts manifestācija. Ogres estrāde savukārt, vai ne, vēsturē iegājas ar 86. gadu pērkonu koncertu.
Gulbi un vilcieniem.
Un, diemžēl, izdemalētiem vilcieniem. Jā. Bet tev ar lauka estrādēm ir liela pieredze.
Zini, kā jau gribu tā vikli, tā sakrāli, tā iet tā, kā svētvietā. Bet tā jau arī ir.
A, kāpēc tu jūties tā kā svētvietā?
Tāpēc, ka šeit ir tā kā sajūta. Es domāju, ka visi veidotāji ir par to parūpējušies, ieskaitot Dievu un dabu. Paskaties, tie ir kaut kas tāds... Viņš liekas, tas mazliet tā kā... Kaut kas viegli grieķisks, ja? Amfiteātris tāds. Jā. Un vēl tāds pārlaicīgs. Tā kā mazliet... Es saprotu, ka ir izrādīta cieņa pret senatni, bet šeit ir arī kaut kas tāds kosmisks, ne? Debesu apvākots.
Yes, and under this sky roof, total area is 5,600 square meters, and the construction period what we has done, all it is 2.5 months. And here you see before and after, and yes, there is a story about public discussions where a local society said that we have enough with that we have and nothing new we don't want. And there is a very important to have a supportive person. And in our case, it was a daughter of the man who built this old building, and she stand up and says that what the old hut had to be demolished, and why? Because my father would be the first one who say so, and yeah, it helped us to go forward and start this magic job. And so we have
Gribas tev parādīšu, kāda te izskatījās estrāde vēl līdz 13. gadam. Pasties. Maza, klasiska lauku estrādīte.
Iepriekšējo estrādi te uzcēla pirms 45 gadiem, pateicoties 2 ar mākslu apsēstiem diklēniešiem – kordiriģentam Arvīdam Kaksim un kultūras nama direktoram Edgaram Lustem. Estrāde iemiesoja šejienes kultūras tradīcijas un ļaužu pašapziņu, tāpēc liels bija vietējo sašutums, kad pašvaldība pirms 3 gadiem lēma, lai godam nosvinētu pirmo dziedāšanas svētku 150. gada dienu, vecā būda jājauc nost. Direktora Lustes mantojums tika uzskatīts gluži vai par svētu.
Direktora meita, starp citu Mārtiņa Sirmā šefpavāra mamma, bija izšķirošā, kur izšķīra vecās estrādes likteni. Jo visi gaidīja, ka viņa aizstāvēs to savu tēvu, celto un neļaus jaukt nost. Un vienmēr viņa sabiedriskā apspriešanā viņa pieceļās, un viņa saka, jūs zināt ko? Saka, mans paps būtu pirmais, kas būtu teicis, ej, bet jaucam šito veco šķūni nost, ja mums ir iespēja tikt pie labākas. Ja? Te nav jābūt baigam arhitektam, lai uzreiz uzmetot aci, varētu pateikt, ka šis laikam ir tā kā labāk nekā bija, vai ne?
Yeah, according to the project goal, it was planned to build a team of professionals who was involved in development of the project, and including the main director of all Latvian Song and Dance Festival in Riga, who due his experience helped plan the layout of stage and seats for the audience. The architect, Uģis Šenbergs, and he has developed the construction of the National Concert Hall differently from the typical open-air stage on this type in rural areas. It has a considerate and ecological construction using only natural, renewable materials to preserve and emphasize a special landscape of using only landscape of the location. And he said, actually, you have to retouch on the spot as a sculpture. The artist, Ivar Smiley, this is the artist of the Latvian Song Festival too, and the environmental art object Silver Grove created by him and emphasizes the existence of Latvian Song Festival in the concert hall. The object is dedicated to nature unique diversity where visitors can feel the harmony between nature and human. A place for activities, cognition, development, and education in the open-air slide. And very significant, of course, a constructor who, during this implementation of project, respected the peculiarities of local environment, historical monuments of national significance, and the stage is built in the middle of the peninsula, which is surrounded from three sides by the river, which installed with installed ponds. The elements we have built in this process is a three-zone dance stage, orchestra stage, terraces, amphitheatre with 2,000 seats, audience area with 5,000 seats, new footpaths and driveways, spontan-type bridges over the river, internal power supplies. And major earth-moving works during the construction were carried out. The river was cleaned and deepened as expanse of open water was no longer visible. And due to the river cleaning works, an artificial pond had formed and a terrace-style stage on its shore was built. Cold weather does not hold back the construction work because the works has been done in winter. And stage floors, spontan bridge, surface, and railings were made of spruce wood. Terraces, walkways, and driveways were made of sand as well as from gravel and clay crushed stone mixture collected from local carriers. The landscape's relief was made of earth embankments and reinforced with natural lawns. The goal has been achieved that we plan, and the task of the Nature Concert Hall respecting landscape preservation principles is to highlight its attractiveness at the same time ensuring a possibility for run large-scale events in the way it has been in the very beginning of the Song Festival. In the processes of design and building the Nature Concert Hall, emphasis was put on preservation of the existing landscape and environmental richness, as well as the use of natural materials. As the architect said, the Naken Concert Hall is made out of wood, and it is material that doesn't have any food after just like birds and animals in the wood. A stage is planned with the idea of variability. The stage and the amphitheatre includes the idea of multifunctionality, possibilities of changing the stage, which has been transformable stands for major performances and concert.
Tā ir ļoti daudz iespēju. Zin, kā ir dažreiz tagad modē, piemēram, ka skatītāji sēž uz skatuves un kaut kas notiek apkārt, tad arī būtu interesanti. Ja šeit tā kā apsēstos un tur notiktu kaut kāda...
Precīzi. Ja mēs te, nu, jā, šitas it kā oriģināli ir deju placis, bet tikpat labi šeit var izvietot, un tas arī te ir noticis jau uz pasaukumiem, tu te var likt krēslus, un tur uzstājas, piemēram, kaut kāds orķestris, jā. Vai skaties, šitien te var būt gan skatītāji šitajos solos, gan arī mazāks kora sastāvs, jā. Šeit tieši tas pats. Jā. Tepat ir arī speciāli viņiem noliktavā glabājas dēļi, kas ir izgatavoti, lai uzlikt uz to granti, lai varētu kā sēdvietas izmantot. Jo, redz, tur jau pat ir numuriņi. Ja? Viņš arī ir sanumurēts, viņš der gan skatītājiem, gan koristiem.
Yeah, in our minds, one of very successful things is that the stage floor is placed behind the artificial earth embankments, emphasizing the naked columns as a historical monument of the national significance and UNESCO cultural heritage. And there are no small and insignificant things in restoration of cultural monuments. And here you see some wonderful plays in action. Thousands of singers, dancers, and spectators are happy together in one place for singing and dancing. And the old oak was its central element during reconstruction. An oak which is preserved in front of the stage are a gesture of recognition for the folk music, which is respected so much that it is used as the main place for the Latvian flag. And the landscape relief was made of earth embankments and reinforced with natural lawns. One more other magical miracle that was revealed, the natural water mirror has created the outline of the map of Latvia. The 100-meter wide mirror-like reflection on the water surface between the singers and audience works as an acoustic amplifier. Taking into consideration the influence and prevailing winds, terraces, and slopes. There we can hear how it sounds.
Ui, kāda atbalsts!
Bet ir? Oh!
Oh?
Oh! Tā ir maģija, ne? Kā tu vari, nu, ne tev te jumts, ne tev te sienas.
Jā, un tā atskan kaut kā brīnišķīgi. Iedomājies, kā te vēl vakarā varētu atskanēt.
Te kopā var sanākt ap 7000 cilvēku, 2000 koristu.
Tas vispār neizskatās. Es tieši gribēju tev teikt, kāpēc tu saki, ka viena no lielākajām, nu neizskatās milzīgi, vai ne?
Te viltība.
Kas sanāk tad?
Zini, ko viņi skaita klāt?
Jā.
To upītes nogāzi. Edzi, to visu to zaļo nogāzi, tā arī ir speciāli veidota. Nevēl, viņi tā kā tādos divos līmeņos. Ja?
Ar veķīšiem.
Jā, tieši tā. Ka apmēram 2000 cilvēku var satilpt eleganti arī tur. Un tad ir 2000 koristi un 5000 skatītāji.
In addition to the National Landscape Award, thanks which we have gained invaluable opportunity to be today among such charming European landscape objects, today we have also received several evolutions of the construction industry, including the construction of the Year of Latvia. But the greatest assessments in that the National Concert Hall how lives today has experienced many remarkable events and become even richer with new elements. And here are the event posters, and the poster of izpārdots means that the sold out, and papildu izrāde means that the demand is so high that the additional show should be organized. And all of that in one small Latvian village, 100 kilometers from capital city. The positive impact of project on the public is evidenced not only by public appreciation, but the wide range of events attendance, but the fact that the project serves as stimulus for voluntary initiatives of the public to supplement and improve the offer of the nature concert halls. Here you see some dance event with 1,050 100 dancers and 3,000 people who watching that audience. very smallest events.
Tur šo nesauc par estrādi. Kopš uzcēluši to jauno, tā ir Neikenkalna dabas koncertzāle.
Jā, un tāpēc viņa ir tāda simboliski veidota.
Viņa arī nav kā estrādi.
Kaut Dikļu dabas koncertzāle celta kā pastāvīga būve, ar dabīgo materiālu koku un iekļaušanos ainavā, tā atgādina seno dziesmu svētku arhitektūru, kad vēl cēla vieglas konstrukcijas pagaidu estrādes. Tiesa šeit sasniegts pilnīgi cits līmenis gan izmantošanas iespēju, gan mākslinieciskā koptēla ziņā. Arhitektūras miedarbība ar dabu te pat tiešām ir maģiska un aizrauj elpu.
Kursa komisija, apmeklējot objektu, bija patīkami pārsteigta, kā estrādē patīkami atrasties kā ziemā, tā vasarā.
Ir daudz skaistas estrādes. Es esmu pēdējā gada laikā arī papētījusi, kādas estrādes ir Latvijā radušās, pēdējā 10 gadē varbūt, un daudzas varētu saukt par īpašām, bet tieši šāda vēsturiskās vides un arhitektūras un dabas saskaņu es neesmu redzējusi. Jā, vairāk es esmu redzējusi, kā cilvēki ir radījuši vietu, kur uzstāties koriem, teātriem vai kur notikt zaļumballēm, bet šādu harmonisku objektu, kurš pat bez koncerta ir brīnumaina vieta, kur uzturēties un dabā klausīties. Tādu neesmu redzējusi.
Un tu zini, ka ne tikai dzīvē vajag jēgu, arī vietai vajag jēgu. Un man liekas, ka šī te vieta, pat tukša esot, viņa ir ar jēgu. Ja? Te var baigi gudri prātuļot, vai bija vērts taisīt tik lielu estrādi, tik mazam miestam, tik tālu prom no Rīgas. Kā tad viņi te atpelnīs to 1/4 miljonu, ja, te tā.
Nav jau jāatpelna.
Vai ne?
Nav jāatpelna. Jādzied, jādejo.
Kultūra, kā zināms, vispār reti, kad ir rentabla, un tai tādai nav jābūt. Kultūras būvju pastāvēšanai atslēgas vārds ir nevis rentabilitāte, bet gan jēga. Piepildījums ar augstvērtīgu kultūras saturu, tai skaitā ar augstvērtīgu arhitektūru, kas cilvēkiem ļauj lepoties ar savām viedzīmēm. Kas Liepājai, Cēsīm vai Rēzeknei daudz miljonu koncertzāles, tas Dikļiem 1/4 miljonu estrāde.
Don't be afraid to dream. Do not be afraid to realize your dreams. Thank you for attention.
Bon, le sens plutôt que le profit. Encore une très belle illustration de ce que j'ai pu indiquer en introduction avant de présenter l'ensemble de ces projets. On a vu aussi ce matin avec nos amis grecs les difficultés que peuvent causer le manque d'historicité de certains paysages. Et là, on a une belle illustration de l'importance accordée à l'histoire pour construire une nouvelle page de l'histoire de ce paysage. Et une belle illustration aussi de la place de l'immatériel qui ne se voit pas forcément, mais là qui s'entend en l'occurrence, et qui participe de ce qu'on appelle en France l'esprit des lieux. Donc bravo à toutes les deux, et Maguelone va vous remettre le diplôme. Sorry, your colleague will translate for us. Bravo à toutes les deux. Bien, écoutez, je vous annonce à présent la pause café.
Because we don't have much time, we just will grab our coffee and bring it here. No time for extra break, okay? Just bring your coffee here and we will continue. Tonight is the program is free. However, we have organized
S'il vous plaît. Voilà, oui. Nous allons reprendre avec deux dernières interventions pour cette fin d'après-midi, à la différence de ce qui est indiqué dans le programme. Et donc nous allons commencer par la présentation du projet intitulé « Le paysage de l'Anse de Bologna, recherche, planification et intervention », projet porté par l'Institut du patrimoine historique andalou, du département de la culture du gouvernement local de l'Andalousie, en Espagne, avec des représentants du ministère, Madame Elena Vázquez Garcia, conseillère technique pour la gestion et la coordination du patrimoine culturel au sein du ministère de la Culture et des Sports d'Espagne, et Monsieur Antonio Jesús Antequera Delgado, architecte, conseiller technique pour la gestion et la coordination du patrimoine culturel, toujours au sein du ministère de la Culture et des Sports d'Espagne, et des représentants du projet, M. Jesús Cuevas Garcia, technicien en paysage culturel, au sein du laboratoire de paysage, du Centre de documentation et d'études, Institut du patrimoine historique andalou, au sein du département de la culture du gouvernement local d'Andalousie, et M. Miguel Torres Garcia, expert, au sein du département immobilier, du Centre d'intervention, Institut du patrimoine historique d'Andalousie, département de la culture du gouvernement local d'Andalousie, Espagne. The floor is yours.
Kalispera, good afternoon. We are going to... Oh, better, thank you. In order to contextualize the project of our Andalusian colleagues, we are going to make a very quick review of the main actions that has been taken by the Spanish ministry since last semester. So here we go. Okay, thank you. So, for example, we have made the allegations and amendments to the new coastal law that is planned to be approved in Spain, taking in consideration all the cultural heritage that is near the coast or over the coast, mainly industrial heritage and these industrial landscapes. We have also made some allegations and observations to the new European directives, such as Efficient Energy Directive and also Renewable Energy Directive also, because it has an affection, an important affection in landscape. We have also made some progress in the National Plan of Climate Change Adaptation in collaboration with the Ministry of Ecological Transition. And well, this is a matrix, but we are evaluating projects like this vernacular building in Formentera, in Balearic Islands, or a pilot program about sustainable tourism in Formentera, also in Balearic Islands. Besides that, we are going to, Madrid is going to host the first Congress about historic urban landscape. It's going to be next autumn, and we are invited with a presentation also about memory, time, space, and landscape, in that case, urban landscape. And we have also planned a technical seminar in the ministry with some panels, 4 panels. First one about the legal framework of landscape in Spanish legislation, the management, also the risks and climate impacts in relationship with climate change, that is very, very important, and education and dissemination, that is the 4 leg of this. And we have other initiatives that has been taken on by other governments, local, regional, and we can say this law for the palm grove of Elche, is a UNESCO World Heritage Place. If you don't know, we aim you to go. The País Basque law about urban and rural development, or the declaration of singular landscapes, such as Ribeira Sacra in Galicia, that it's also a very special place. And we have opened the period for the Spanish nominations for the European Landscape Award. And past years, we have very good experiences, such as Eneapar. Well, I have seen the panel, so I'm going to pass fast. Or the Millennial Olives in Castellón. And in the 6th edition, the Bologna Cove, that our colleagues are going to show you. And in 2022, we are willing to know which is going to be next, the next landscape. Thank you so much. Ευχαριστόπολη. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. May I get the presentation, please? Okay. So we're presenting the Spanish national candidate for the Landscape Award, which is the landscape of Bologna Cove. Bologna is in Cádiz, on the southernmost tip of the Iberian Peninsula, a very significant landscape, as you will see. And the presentation is entitled Research, Planning and Intervention. And that means that I have to give a little context before I actually explain the project, because there's a process there, and that is in the process that I want to put the focus on, rather than in the results. The results are very nice and eye-pleasing, because it was a very successful project in its materiality and how it came out. So I'm feeling a bit sorry. I'm going to show you a lot of lists and criteria, but I think it's important to see that it was a collaboration and interdisciplinary effort that facilitated that result. So I'm going to go very briefly through how our institute, which is the Andalusian Historical Heritage Institute, works. Then I'm going to put the project in the context of the landscape research at our institute. And finally, I'm going to go quickly through the project. So our institute, the Andalusian Institute for Historical Heritage, it was founded in 1989 by the Andalusian government to contribute to the regional culture policies in everything related to heritage from a comprehensive, multidisciplinary point of view. It's been evolving ever since. It's been a public agency since 2007 and a research institute from 2011. We operate in 3 different ways. First, we are a research institute, as I just said. Then we're also a branch of administration, and we provide public services as well as services to support to other administrations that may operate in the Andalusian territory. And finally, we also operate as a business agency, and we deliver services for whoever, whichever private actors might need our expertise and advice. So all this to say that I have to separate between this part here, which is the administrative structure, and the operational structure, which is over here, and that's 3 legs to it. There's the 2 most voluminous ones are the documentation center, and the landscape laboratory is within this documentation center, whereas intervention deals with any type of intervention in any type of heritage, from textiles to paper to buildings and landscapes. And that's where I belong, which is the projects department. So we're talking about a project that is actually a collaboration between not only 2 departments within an institution, but 2 different ways of approaching heritage. One from documenting, researching, analyzing, and the other one more focused on intervention, restoration, rehabilitation, etc. So after this little context within the institution, I want to talk about the landscape research in the institute, and especially on the first stages, because the landscape of Bologna Cove played a big role in actually giving shape to the methodologies used in the landscape laboratory. As soon as the European Landscape Convention was ratified by Spain, several administrations in the Andalusian region started systematizing the Andalusian landscapes. This is one of the main results of that early process, which is the map of landscapes of Andalusia, and it was done not in our, say, Directorate or regional ministry, which is culture, but in an environment regional ministry. According to criteria, had to do a lot with geography and environment. In the landscape laboratory took it upon themselves to take that information and actually pass it through a cultural sieve in order to identify what they called records of landscapes of cultural interest. And these are landscapes that have maintained their character very well, or outstandingly well, let's say, and they are very representative of the ensemble of Andalusian landscapes. There are 117 of these landscapes of cultural interest, and if you're interested, we have a few, of these publications here to give away, if any of you want to have a look, but it's also available online. So each one of these landscapes of cultural interest were systematized according to different sets of documents. These are dissemination leaflets that are very basic, just for informing the public about the basic characteristics of the landscapes. And there's also more thorough analysis and technical sheet that it's prepared for each of these landscapes. So there's a very important work of identifying and systematizing information regarding all these landscapes. So finally, Bologna Cove. It is one of these landscapes of cultural interest. It's actually not just one, it's a very important one because this was identified even before all that system was actually devised. This was a pioneering experience and it gave shape to what you just saw, all this system. The importance of this landscape relies on that there's a very long-standing tradition or, say, history of settlement, which is evident in 3 archaeological sites. One Roman foundation, which was a fishing port and factory city for fish preserves, and 2 prehistoric tomb sites that reveal the importance, that symbolic and ritual importance of this landscape since very, very ancient times. It is also a place of very outstanding natural quality. It has a natural park, natural feature, which is the dune of Bologna, which is an ecosystem of its own right, and it's also part of a biosphere reserve. And it's also, from the social standpoint, a place where all ancient activities have remained, particularly fishing, the elaboration of fish products, and livestock rearing. It's also the backdrop of different kinds of tourism. From the early 70s and 80s, it's been the destination of alternative tourists, mostly soft culture, and as of recently, more traditional or conventional types of tourism. So after this was identified as a landscape of cultural interest, it was a guide for its management was drafted by the landscape laboratory. And this is a very extensive guide that makes an analysis, and you can see here, makes a landscape characterization. It analyzes the landscape structure according to many different dimensions. It's very heavy on the analysis of perceptions, and it follows a diagnostic and some strategic guidelines for management and protection. This is a very important document, which was the basis for the actual intervention project. These are the strategic guidelines, and you can see here highlighted, well, you cannot see them, but you see them highlighted. The ones that were deemed more important for the starting the design strategy towards an intervention. And incidentally, there's a little graph showing a little bit which are the main actions that were deemed important for the project, and they have to do with the creation of cultural itineraries between these Bologna, Bailo Claudia, Roman archaeological site, and the tomb sites, as well as some other features that are around. So the cultural itinerary as an important tool for an enhancement of landscape. Incidentally, recently, the laboratory has drafted a kind of a guide to landscape guide. There's a set of criteria for making up this kind of landscape management guides. And this is being released recently, and it's going to be released in English also very soon. So if you're interested, it will be available for download from our website. So finally, the project. First of all, a little institutional context. This was made in collaboration with the Ministry of Culture and the Institute of Cultural Heritage of Spain, which gave all the funding, or most of the funding, and technical support. And it was our department's responsibility to draft the action project, do all the implementing and works monitoring, and do the final reporting. The total amount was like 3.7 million euros. It came from the 1% cultural budget from the Ministry of Environment. And in order to summarize a little bit before I go on, we were talking about research, reflection, and action, and we've covered this part of the research, which is taking all those many different historical layers that make up the landscape. And there's another part of reflection that came from the landscape laboratory, which had to do with creating the cultural landscape guide, and then give criteria and strategic goals and actions. And then there was the next step was on the side of the projects department, which was to take all those criteria and guidelines and actually translate them into design and project tools. And they did that also systematically, following that very systematic way of proceeding by drafting a design strategy and agreeing on an intervention language that was appropriate for the site. And you'll see in a moment what that means. And then there was the action, which actually the implementation of the project and the materiality of it. So there were some, this is already the work of the projects department, and well, it was a few conceptual bases and a few principles of intervention and objectives that were derived or elaborated from what's already was in the landscape guide. And a design strategy started to take shape. And there were 3 points to this design strategy. First one, to make a new interface between the subject or the people and the landscape in order to make it available for understanding, to make the landscape legible by means of different architectural props and situations. To create a new experience, so to provide another layer on top of all those historic layers of landscape. So we didn't refuse to actually intervene in the landscape as a way of making something new and incorporating something new to those landscapes. And also to create this as a strategic way of proceeding that would be replicable elsewhere. So from that design strategy, a few specific objectives were the result, and what they had to do with actually improving the legibility of the archaeological sites, improving the integration with each other by means of itineraries, and making everything more legible and more understandable, and communicate better the qualities of the landscape, as well as protecting and enhancing the actual archaeological heritage by means of a new museological project. There was the need of an intervention language, and we're getting into more specific things. And there was a color-coded system of actions and things that had to happen across all the landscape, and there were groups in different action groups, which were walk, guide, protect, and enjoy, which summarized a little bit of what the objectives of the intervention were. And there was a need also for project tools, and the inspiration from those was drawn on what actually was giving shape to the landscape. And there was all these prints and traces that were found all over the place, and that was reinterpreted in order to see or to decide on how to intervene. And then there was another code of materials and shapes that enabled to communicate and to guide people and to be comfortable and to adapt the place by still making a difference with the old remains and be legible, but not intrusive or inadequate in any way. So I brought a bunch of, I'm already out of time, so I brought a bunch of photographs, and we actually really fun to see that. I'm going to give you just a couple of examples of how we tackled those 6 objectives that I showed before, because I think that you can always go there and see, go to the webpage. But just to show how all that systems, all the systematic procedure manifests in the actual outcome. The first objective was to improve the spatial relation between Bologna Cove and the ocean, and this was a Roman city which was actually a fishing port, and it had a direct relationship with the sea, which was in the shape of wooden docks. Of course, they were wooden, so they're long gone, and there was a need to fence out the archaeological site, which meant that relationship with the sea was lost. And there was an idea of actually recovering that lost relationship. So you see all the streets of the city actually lead to the sea. So that relationship was very strong from the street grid, but it wasn't really evident in the actual edge between the beach and the city. So what was devised was this platform that made that divide a bit broad and livable in a way, and which also reminisced of that past of wooden docks that would create a relationship with the sea that was a bit flexible and mobile, if you wish. That system also allowed to direct views towards the sea when it was important, or to focus on the most relevant features of the archaeological site when it was needed. A second objective was to improve the cultural interpretation of the archaeological site. And you see, I brought this slide most of all as an example of how those color-coded actions were distributed across the different places in order to have a guideline of how to intervene in each one of those. And then this is the before state and the late state, and you see that one of the main elements of this was that the street grid was restored so as to show better the relationship between the sea and the city, and the actual scale of this urban space. Again, that relationship with the city, the improvement of accessibility for people with disabilities, the choice of specific spots for interpretive material, so it was very, very clear, very easy, unobtrusive, and not interfering at all with experience. And some resting areas, again for accessibility, and choosing specific places where there was subjective to have some interpretive content too. And last, I wanted to show you a little bit of, because this was a lot centered in the Bologna Cove archaeological site, but there were 2 other archaeological sites which were tomb sites. And again, you can see here all these color-coded actions that created this cultural itinerary, the signaling. Again, the signaling is very clear that it's actually modern, but it's not at all interfering with experience, and it's clearly another layer that's added to the landscape. And it also afforded the opportunity to recover, reclaim that symbolic importance that the landscape have had as it is in prehistoric times. This is the other necropolis, which had a more complex system of access and itineraries, because this necropolis was on top of a hill, and so there were 3 different trails that would actually give access to the necropolis, but also make a little pathway around the hill and help understand all the enclave in which it is. Okay, so that's all. Thank you very much. And as I said, if anyone's interested in the little booklets on the registry of landscape of cultural importance, we have them for you. Cheers.
Merci beaucoup à vous pour cette présentation qui nous montre effectivement des résultats concrets, avec notamment des sentiers d'interprétation accessibles pour tous les publics, mais aussi vous avez beaucoup insisté au-delà des résultats qui se traduisent dans les paysages, sur la méthode en elle-même, le processus qui a permis de faire coopérer entre elles différentes institutions, avec la notion de participation des différents acteurs à toutes les échelles, qui est une des dimensions fortes portées aussi par la Convention. Maguelone, je te laisse la parole.
Yes, we are very pleased. Muchas gracias. We forgot, in fact, the original of the diploma, but I created one in the meantime. And we will give you and send by post the original very soon when I come back. But we can go and...
Alors, nous allons poursuivre et terminer pour les présentations de projets de paysage de cet atelier 2 avec le projet relatif à la sauvegarde et restauration du paysage baroque du calvaire Banska Stiavnica, avec donc un projet porté par l'association civique du Fonds pour le calvaire de la République slovaque et une représentante du ministère, Madame Ida Vanakova, conseillère d'État principale au sein du département de l'aménagement paysager, direction de l'évaluation de l'impact environnemental, donc pour le compte du ministère de l'Environnement de la République slovaque.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone, Kalo Apojevma. We have in Slovakia national elections for Slovak National Landscape Award every 2 years, and the winner is nominated to the European Landscape Convention. The organizer of Landscape Award in the Slovak Republic is our Ministry of Environment of the Slovak Republic, together with the Slovak Agency of Environment. nominated project must meet the given criteria and by the time of candidation must be terminated and implemented for the public for a minimum 3 years. The criteria are as follows: sustainability, unique value, public participation, and awareness raising. In this 6th session, the winner was a project dealing with safeguarding and restoration of a composed Baroque landscape of Banská Štiavnica, Calvary. It is located in a small town with rich mining history in the middle of Slovakia. Regretfully, the representatives of the project, Mr. Macharik and Mrs. Vošková, couldn't attend this wonderful meeting. So I'm here to present you this beautiful winning project. Please, the video. And let me this video speak for me.
Nachádzame sa v krajine Štiavnických vrchov, čo je vulkanické pohorie. Vidíme na horizonte okraj bývalej kaldery, bývalého stratovulkánu, ktorý je síce už značne narušený, ale stopy sopečnej činnosti sú zreteľné aj teraz. Pod nami je mesto Banská Štiavnica a v strede krajiny sa týči dominanta vulkanický nek, čo je vlastne vypreparovaný sopečný sopúch, ktorý sa priam pýta, aby na ňom bola postavená architektonická dominanta. V tomto prípade tu bola postavená jedna z európskych Sacromonte, Kalvária Banskej Štiavnici.
Banská Štiavnica je historické mesto, ktoré má veľmi dlhodobú tradíciu banickú a zároveň aj jej charakter je veľmi multikultúrny. Najmä v 17. storočí sa stala jedným z najvýznamnejších miest Horného Uhorska. Čo sa týka jej pamiatkových hodnot, vďaka práve tým architektúram a všetkým dispozíciám historickým či urbanistickým, ako jedna z prvých sa stala mestskou pamiatkovou rezerváciou, a to v roku 1950. Jej kvality si povšimol i celý svet a vďaka tomu v roku 1993 sa stala významným miestom evidovaným na zozname svetového kultúrneho dedičstva.
Banská Štiavnica zaznamenala v 18. storočí nebývalý rozmach. Prosperita baní bola ohromná, bolo tu množstvo financií a v tom období v meste pôsobili jezuiti, najmä veľmi výrazná osobnosť spomedzi nich František Perger. František Perger a vlastne jezuitský rád sa rozhodli, že na kopci Scharfenberg postavia výnimočnú kalváriu.
V kronike štiavnických jezuitov v zápise k roku 1745 je doslovne napísané, že tento kopec príroda tak utvorila, že ani v celej Germánii, ani Hungárii nie je to krajšieho kopca. Páter Perger nevnímal a nevyužíval krajinu, respektíve prírodu, len na zvýšenie estetického účinku, ale aj na dopovedanie významových motívov. Dielu, ktoré vzniklo ako súhra architektúry, sochárstva, maliarstva a umeleckého remesla, dominuje duchovný rozmer. V podstate vytvára nosný prvok pre konštituovanie barokovej sakrálnej krajiny ako miesta pre sviatočné vyžitie vtedajšieho náboženského človeka.
Kalvária predstavuje symbiózu krajiny a architektúry, ale jej hlavný význam je v tom, ako baroková architektúra vedela využiť daný priestor. Musíme si uvedomiť, že cieľom postavenia Kalvárie je pútnické miesto. Takisto je rozdiel, keď na Kalváriu ide pútnik, ktorý očakáva duchovný zážitok, ide sa pomodliť, a je rozdiel, keď sem prichádza turista, ktorý skorej vníma Kalváriu ako atrakciu. Každopádne pre všetkých ľudí Kalvária predstavuje nádhernú kompozíciu v krajine. To, čo vidíme teraz, to videli aj dakedy pútnici. Takže Kalvária ich oslovila už v momente, keď vyšli z mesta von a videli celkový symbolický zámer sústavu kaplniek a videli cestu, ktorou pôjdu hore do horného kostola a čaká ich duchovný zážitok.
Kalvária je národnou kultúrnou pamiatkou, ktorá pozostáva z 26 pamiatkových objektov. Od baroka prešla prvou rekonštrukciou koncom 19. storočia a ďalšia veľmi významná bola z obdobia socializmu, kedy na prelome 70. a 80. rokov prekonala jednu veľkú rekonštrukciu. Avšak paradoxne, behom veľmi krátkej doby, jej stavebno-technický stav sa veľmi zhoršil a najmä po roku 1989 doznal areál najviac deštruktívnych aktivít v podobe rôznych vykrádaní samotných reliefov a poškozovaní samotných kaplniek.
Neutešený stav Kalvárie a vandalizmus, ktorý koncom 90. rokov prebiehal na Kalvárii, ma dohnal k tomu, že som sa nad tým stavom začala zamýšľať a využila možnosť nominovať Kalváriu medzi 100 najohrozenejších pamiatok sveta, a to v nadácii World Monuments Fund alebo Svetový pamiatkový fond v New Yorku. Po vypracovaní projektu bola skutočne v roku 2007 Kalvária zaradená medzi 100 najohrozenejších pamiatok sveta.
Kalvária bola vždy taká tajomná záležitosť, pretože sa sem nesprevádzalo, nejakým spôsobom sa neupozorňovalo, že tu také niečo vzácne, zaujímavé je v tom meste. Prvýkrát som prišiel na Kalváriu s brigádnikmi, kamarátmi, skautmi v lete v roku 2006, keď už tá situácia bola naozaj dosť zúfalá a tak mi si povedali, že aspoň niečo robíme. Aspoň tu pokozme a dajme nabok tie stromy, ktoré sú popadané na kaplnkách. Proste rozhýbať to. A v tom čase som sa spoznal aj s Katkou Voškovou, ktorá je pamiatkárka, odborníčka, architektka. No a zrazu sme videli, že je odborné skúsenosti a moje manažérske by dokopy mohli fungovať. A vedlo to teda koncom roka 2007 k založeniu Kalvárskeho fondu, čo je ako historický názov nejakého združenia, ktoré sa staralo o Kalváriu aj pred 200 rokmi. A členmi toho Kalvárskeho fondu sú vlastníci, teda hlavne katolícka cirkev, mesto Banská Štiavnica a štátne lesy. A sú tam dve občianske združenia, ktoré združujú architektov a miestnych skautov.
Obnovu Banskoštiavnickej Kalvárie sme od začiatku chápali ako viac odborový problém. V roku 2007 už sa uskutočnilo prvé vedecké kolokvium, kde sme vlastne zmapovali, čo všetko na Kalvárii chýba, čo všetko je potrebné.
Jednou z takých najväčších hodnôt Kalvárie je vlastne ten jej krajinný výraz a vôbec tá krajinná architektúra, ako to je celé umiestnené v tom kopci a v kombinácii so zeleňou. Keď sme začínali v tom roku 2006-2007, tak situácia bola taká, že náletová zeleň zakrývala väčšinu objektov a dokonca aj pred horným kostolom sa nachádzala. A v tých extrémnych prípadoch, hlavne okolo stredného kostola, tak niektoré vetvy nám priamo vrastali do strechy kostola a pri každom pohybe vetra ničili kostol.
Základnou úlohou vyšeročného dendrologického prieskumu bolo zistiť rozsah pôvodnej barokovej aleje a jeho zhodu so súčasným stavom. V súčasnosti tá aleja je posunutá viac smerom ku kostolu, že našou úlohou bolo remodelovať aleju tak, aby sme otvorili celý pohľad na dolný kostol aj z diaľkových pohľadov.
Samostatnou kapitolou bolo financovanie obnovy Kalvárie. Rekonštrukcia stála asi 2,8 milióna eur,
Išli sme bez eurofondov s tým, že väčšina tých príspevkov boli sponzorské, hlavne z jednej veľkej slovenskej banky a plus nejaké menšie štátne príspevky. Ale dôležité bolo zapojenie aj verejnosti, a to dvomi spôsobmi. Jednak samotné práce nám asi 5000 dobrovoľníkov pomáhalo ušetriť na rôznych terénnych prácach, presunie materiálu a podobne. A tiež sa zapájali ľudia do tzv. Adopcie kaplniek napríklad, čo znamená pravidelné podporovanie konkrétneho objektu na tej ročnej báze. Tých takmer 3 milióny eur bolo treba rozmeniť na menšie projekty. My sme ich teda podali zhruba teda minimálne 200, z toho asi polovička nám vyšla a boli naozaj zrealizované aj financované. Pravidelné financovanie nám zabezpečilo to, že sme získali niekoľko profesionálov, reštaurátorov, ktorí si teda zobrali Kalváriu na starosti po tej stránke odbornej, reštaurátorskej. No a postupne jeden objekt za druhým, jednu kaplnku za druhým mohli odborne reštaurovať, čo znamená, sa to ľahko povie, ale to sú akože obrovské kvantum práce. Všetky fasády sa museli vymeniť, pretože boli cementové, tak sa museli vlastne odstrániť cementové omietky, dávali sa nové omietky a plus teda výmalba vonkajšia. Všetky fresky vnútorné sa museli očistiť a vlastne zreštaurovať. Do toho nám prichádzajú oltáre, sochárske diela, strechy sa museli zrevidovať. Každý v podstate centimetr na tom kostole prešiel nejakou obnovou. Okrem odborných reštaurátorských prác, ktoré sú také pekné, aj to návštevníci vidia, z toho radi fotia, tak na Kalvárii bolo aj strašne veľa práce také neviditeľnej alebo málo viditeľnej na infraštruktúre napríklad. Elektrifikácia celého areálu. Je tu voda, kanalizáciu bolo treba vybudovať. Plus všetky tie drenáže, ktoré sú schované v podzemí niekde okolo základov kostolov. A je to veľa také nevďačnej práce, lebo je to drahé, je to časovo náročné, technicky náročné a v podstate to nie je vidno. Takže túto prácu bolo treba hlavne v prvých rokoch spraviť, aby sme vôbec mohli pokračovať. Ďalšou samotnou kapitolou bolo dobrovoľníctvo. Dobrovoľníci začínali na Kalvárii, ale oni vlastne počas celého toho obdobia tu boli významní a do dneska sú. Pretože okrem reštaurátorských prác, okrem tej infraštruktúrnej ťažkej práce, je tu ešte veľmi veľa takej bežnej údržby. To znamená, celý areál má 6 hektárov. Treba ho každoročne viackrát pokosiť, treba riešiť údržbu chodníkov, ktorých to je vyše kilometr. Treba prenášať materiál z miesta na miesto, alebo pri tých kaplnkách, ktoré sú od seba vzdialené v tom areáli, je ich tu 23, tak to treba stále nejakým spôsobom niečo od niekiaľ nosiť. Lešenie sme prenášali možno 20 krát hore po kopci a to sú tisíce hodín práce, ktoré bolo treba odpracovať, pomohli nás tým dobrovoľníci a nám to zásadným spôsobom pomohlo ušetriť aj prostriedky. Čo ale dôležité pri dobrovoľníkoch, to sú vlastne tisíce ľudí, dokopy to bolo asi 5000, sa tu vystriedalo, ktorí si tu získali nejakým spôsobom vzťah na tej Kalvárii. Tým, že tu pracovali, tak majú istý zážitok, ktorý sa aj v budúcnosti ako vracia tým, že oni sa budú pozrieť po rokoch, ako to dopadlo, ako sa to vyvíja, aj o tom povedia svojim blízkym deťom. Takže takto sa vlastne vznikla obrovská skupina ľudí, istá taká forma komunity, ktorá tú Kalváriu vníma aj z tohto pohľadu. Tak je to akože kvantum práce, obrovské kvantum práce, ktoré za tie roky sa tu vykonala a dneska teraz sa tešíme z toho, že to je hotové.
Celý priebeh rekonštrukcie v zmysle zákona bol konzultovaný a odobrovaný Krajským pamiatkovým úradom. Táto skupina nadšencov a dobrovoľníkov završila veľmi úspešnú rekonštrukciu a v dnešnej dobe sa areál Kalvárie stal veľmi významnou dominantou Banskej Štiavnice.
Postupne, ako sme Kalváriu obnovovali, tak ju navštevovalo čoraz viacej ľudí. V tých prvých rokoch to bolo okolo 10-12 tisíc a posledný rok to už bolo 70 000 návštevníkov. A ja som si tak uvedomoval z roka na rok viacej, že asi tu vzniká niečo také vážne, nielen z hľadiska miestneho, ale aj regionálneho, možno až slovenského. A že to je pamiatka, ktorá je tak unikátna a atraktívna, že asi môže hrať veľkú rolu aj v tej prezentácii celého regiónu. A verím tomu, že ľudia sem prídu nielen z tej pamiatkovej a estetickej stránky si toto miesto užiť, ale aj z hľadiska nejakého duchovného osvieženia, lebo je to predovšetkým cirkevná alebo sakrálna záležitosť a verím, že toto sa nám podarilo skombinovať takým spôsobom, že Kalavaria bude známa a fungovať ďalšie roky.
Personally like on this project was the really high number of volunteers mentioned there. The project has its unique value and it became really a monument and a nice landmark of the town. The project brought Calvary back to the landscape and back to the people. So it was a pleasure for me to be here and have an opportunity to present for you. And I would like to thank also organizers for this beautiful meeting and spread the idea of landscape awareness. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup pour cette présentation. Je voulais insister, mais vous l'avez fait avant moi, effectivement sur la place des 5000 volontaires. Je trouve que ça, entre autres dimensions, c'est aussi ce qui ancre ce projet dans la philosophie de la Convention européenne du paysage qui parle de participation des populations locales. Ça faisait écho aussi avec certaines des interventions de nos amis grecs hier. Je n'ai pas retenu le nom de l'intervenante, mais j'avais noté une phrase. Sans respect du paysage naturel, pas de possibilité de conservation à long terme des monuments historiques. Et donc là, on a aussi un jeu d'intervention sur le patrimoine bâti, mais qui s'inscrit dans une réflexion plus globale sur le paysage. Donc voilà, écoutez, bravo pour ce projet. Et puis je laisse le soin à Maguelone de vous remettre le diplôme. Je vais vous proposer de mettre plutôt à profit le temps libre de ce soir pour poursuivre les échanges sur le projet, en sautant le temps de la discussion qui était prévue dans le programme, eu égard au retard que nous avons pris cet après-midi, et si vous en êtes d'accord. Et donc je propose à Madame Dalila Sicomo, architecte au sein du département de l'architecture de l'Université de Palerme en Italie, de nous rejoindre pour son intervention conclusive.
Merci. Kalispera. Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and have your attention today. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the role of landscape planning in the management of UNESCO sites in Sicily. In particular, I will discuss about Syracuse and the Necropolis of Pantalica, and how are we actively taking care of this millenary heritage and preserving its future? So I have to beg your pardon, maybe some of the text have been displaced, but I will guide you through some steps of this work that stems from a research carried out between 2019 and 2020 within the group responsible of the urban planning section for the update of the management plan of UNESCO sites of southeastern Sicily that was commissioned by the Italian Ministry of Culture. So first I'm going to present you the case study, and then we will go through a brief overview of Italian landscape planning legal framework. We'll see together what were the sources, the analysis, and the outputs of this management plan, and we'll conclude with some final remarks. Well, the site, Syracuse and the rocky necropolis of Pantalica, is located in an almost pericentric position in the Mediterranean Sea, on the southeastern part of Sicily. Among the 7 sites inscribed in the World Heritage List of the region, it is one of the most heterogeneous, bearing exceptional testimony of the history and cultural diversity of the Mediterranean civilization over 3 millennia, from the ancient Greek period to the late Baroque. Once Italian historian Migliorini wrote about the Mediterranean Sea as a millenary space of stacked civilization, the Mediterranean is well acquainted with the game of truths that chase each other, overlap, seeking an immortality that ensures them the most important victory of all, that against time. Well, the site of Syracuse and Pantalica embeds the nature of this quote and offers a unique testimony of the Mediterranean civilization that have left a mark on the landscape of Sicily. The property inscribed in the World Heritage List since 2005 covers more than 6,400 hectares and consists of 3 main core areas that we see on the left, the Necropolis of Pantalica, and on the right, the ancient Syracuse and Ortigia Island. The first core is located in a natural reserve. The other 2 are located in an urban coastal area and correspond to the ancient town of Syracuse. Each of the 3 core areas has a substantial buffer zone that is indicated in red and lying over both land and sea space and within 6 different municipalities. Well, we'll see first the Necropolis of Pantalica that contains over 5,000 tombs cut into the rock near open stone quarries and also bear some of the vestiges of the Byzantine era. Here on the picture we see the remains of the Anactoron, the Prince Palace. Well, the other part of the site is ancient Syracuse, which Cicero described as the greatest Greek city and the most beautiful of all, that retains vestiges such as the Greek theater and a Roman amphitheater and many other archaeological sites that are in a park that is extended all over the city of Syracuse. Then we have Ortigia. This is an island that is linked to the peninsula through a bridge. And at the very end, we see this fort, Castello Maniace. And the whole island is comprised in the core area, described in UNESCO. And we have also this cathedral, Baroque style, that was an ancient temple, Temple of Athena. We can see some of the columns on the exteriors, but also on the interior. All these elements bear witnesses to the troubled history of Sicily, from the Byzantines to the Bourbons, from the Normans to the Aragons and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Well, being located in a low elevation coastal zone, the case study has been listed in 2018 among the 49 UNESCO sites at risk from flooding and coastal erosion due to sea level rise. The case study area is also known in the region because it is located in a seismic zone and also because it is at high hydrological risk. Now we'll see just a brief framework, legal framework of landscape planning in Italy. That with the legislative decree 42/2004, Italy transposed the European Landscape Convention into the Cultural Heritage and Landscape Code, also known as Codice Urbani, which implements and organizes a previous rich but rather fragmented body of legislation. The Cultural Heritage and Landscape Code laid down for the first time a comprehensive regulation of the essential profiles of landscape plan. Provincial landscape plans identify local landscapes, apply direct or indirect constraints to area, and foresee limited transformation interventions to maintain the significant features of the landscape. The code ensures that any activity must be authorized by the relative superintendents of environmental and cultural assets. Among the Italian regions, Sicily benefits from a certain autonomy, and the regional guidelines were approved first, and then provincial plans follow it. The Territorial Landscape Plan of Syracuse is in force since 2018 and identified different local landscape ranging from urbanized coastal crag, closed coastal plains to river valleys. Well, this proved essential to verify the protection status of the site granted by law. Well, part of the research work focused on the analysis of existing local plans of the different municipalities and to verify if the constraints guarantee the protection of the site's UNESCO Management Plan for Syracuse and Pantalica 2020. This management plan delivered has as output some action plans that were aimed at implementing the conservation of the property, but also fire and flooding risk reduction and sustainable fruition of the site with itineraries. The case study contains individual assets and areas subject to direct and indirect constraints of different kinds, mainly archaeological and landscape related. The core area is subjected to is also subjected to a reserve plan for Pantalica, natural reserve plan, and for the ancient Syracuse part is also guaranteed by a plan of archaeological park. Also, Ortigia benefits from a special plan that is in force in 1919. Well, most of the action are aimed at minimal interventions. and transformation, and mostly philological restoration. And all of these interventions have to be approved by the superintendents of Syracuse. Part of the buffer zones of the Syracuse and Pantalica site lie within some of protected natural areas. Some of these are also part of Natura 2000 network, Ramsar zone, and important plant areas. Well, and even if the current protection and planning regulatory system confirms a high level of protection of the case study, further implementation is needed. Some of the local plans are outdated and in need of revision, and also horizontal coordination between plans can be improved. The UNESCO site management plans takes into account a series of monitoring and occasional intervention to prevent or face some of the hazards. And this instrument lacks a long-term vision, encompassing a 3 to 5 year strategy, and has limited efficacy compared to the landscape plan. Well, now we are about to conclude. Historical landscape and millenary heritage are, without any shadow of doubt, resilient, because they are able to resist through time, reinventing themselves sometime, as we have seen on some of the presentation today, and changing. Landscape have always changed over time and will continue to change, both through human action and natural processes. Assuming the identity of a landscape as a dynamic process produced by values and interaction of a community, it should be remembered that preservation does not mean preventing any change from happening. The conservative nature of the plans and radical conservative approach may affect, in the long term, the preservation of the same properties, limiting the application of some mitigation and adaptation measures to the effect of climate change, especially in historical urban contexts. In seeking the right balance between protection, management, and planning of landscape and cultural heritage, it becomes necessary to develop a long-term strategy, forecasting different scenarios, sometimes modifying certain characteristics to accommodate the change that restrictions sometimes do not allow. Adaptation and mitigation measures integrated together with monitoring and preventive alert system, educational programs, and public engagement in planning processes with cyclical revisions have to be taken into account. The same applies to all these places and landscapes that are not on the UNESCO World Heritage List, and that lacking visibility could be for that reason more endangered, but are equally important, and most of all, they bear witness of the victory of time. Thank you.
Thank you for,
Merci à nouveau. Donc je clôt cet atelier numéro 2 en rappelant les aspects pratiques. Rendez-vous, si j'ai bien compris, à 19h45 pour prendre le bus et pour avoir ces 2 à 3 heures ou 2h30 de temps libre ce soir. Pour ceux qui le souhaitent, en tout cas. Voilà, voilà, pour ceux qui souhaitent se rendre à Trikala. Le programme de la soirée est en libre. Merci de votre attention. Merci aux présents.
I think we can do tomorrow because it's.
Merci à vous tous. Merci de votre attention. Merci à toutes les personnes qui ont assuré des présentations cet après-midi, aujourd'hui plus généralement. Et merci à l'ensemble des traducteurs également. Merci à vous.